don't remember when it happened, but I remember how I felt. Father told us to hide when they came to our house. Then they took him away. Mother said I couldn't play outside anymore. Everyone had fled. She said the country was sick, but we would be okay. Mother always said monsters didn't exist. I thought they lived under my bed. We were both wrong. They live inside our heads.
Well, hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome back to the channel for our first exciting look at a game by the name of Hell Is Us. Hell Is Us is a game that is a open world-ish exploration game with a lot of combat. And for those of you who are falling in love this year with Clear Obscure Expeditions 33. Oh yeah, your ears just perked up, I bet. This game shares a lot in common with that in terms of its block parry system and also its dodging system to bring in something that I've never quite seen before. We'll talk about that in just a moment for how healing and some things set this game apart. But honestly, the world here that we're seeing at the initial start is gorgeous and is based on Central and Eastern European architecture and landscapes, and also a little bit lore going on there with how buildings and things look. It's very Baba Yaga for certain elements to how they've approached the people and their culture. But also, I must say that this game takes place in like the late 90s, early 2000s after the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, this is a fictional place and it's all a fictional game, but it absolutely feels like a place in a time that is post Soviet occupation. And in fact, there's a big civil war going on, and this game does not shy away from literally having you face mass graves and people losing their families and children taken away, and this game is immediately all up in your face. Now, the questing in this game takes the approach of Atomfall, where it's very hands-off in terms of you chatting with somebody and them saying, man, I could really use a drink right now, and you picking up on that clue and then trying to go find something later on and being like, wait a minute, I just found a thing of whiskey or a thing of wine, maybe I should give it back to that person, and then you can go ahead and do that. The game does not link items together like that, and you're very much encouraged to take notes while you play, but there is a system within the game to keep track of current tasks and quests and things that you have done or that you should do, but doesn't necessarily give you all the pieces that you need in order to solve it. So there's a little bit of like a mist or Riven elements there, and very much like a Souls-like game too with the combat, which we'll get to in just a little bit. I'm excited to show this next section here where you can immediately tell that it's a civil war going on, a devastating war zone, and that's what this game is really trying to approach, that humanity goes out the window when war is needing to be won. When you're against the enemy, you need to dehumanize them and, of course, moralize your troops, give them a lot of morale, and demoralize the enemy in order to win. And to get your troops to fight, you basically need to tell them that the enemy is not human and that you need to be a heartless killer. And so all of the emotions that your troops or the enemy's troops would face on compassion and empathy, go right into the trash can, and you're supposed to be a violent, murderous killer. And that's exactly what you're fighting in this game, is creatures that look like they're from iRobot, that don't have a face or like a chest or like a soul, but you can see the umbilical cord attaching to them with these different colors of shapes, things that could turn into like meat cleavers or spears or whatever, and that's what you're blocking and parrying. And going back to what I mentioned earlier about this system's very unique like healing element, I think it's called the pulse system, where it's almost like gambling a little bit. If you take a lot of damage against an enemy, or if you've taken a lot of damage and you're continuously fighting enemies, if you can get into a wonderful rhythm of block, parry or whatnot, you can generate what they call pulse, and then hit a button and claim that and gain a lot of your health back. The game still has health items, and things like med kits or eating food will certainly heal you, but what I think is really cool is that there's a risk to fighting the enemy, and of course if you take on a high level enemy and you're very low health, you're probably not going to have a good time, but it does mean you could possibly pull off a win by attacking them and timing your attacks and your blocks, so that way you perfect the fight and gain a lot of health from that, and that's really cool. Now this game immediately has you going off into your try to find your parents, your main quest, and you're returning to a place that's kind of like North Korea, or really just like any Soviet bloc state, let's say, during the Cold War, where you're cut off from the entire world, and everybody is basically ratting you out and snitching on you, and so you're getting into this nation, and they're looking for you. Like a KGB element is interrogating you and asking you about what happened, and so you're kind of reliving those memories and those thoughts, although it's kind of debatable as to whether or not it's actually happening in your mind, or it's the type of game that has so many questions. I could tell you what I think is happening or what I absolutely experienced, and it could be completely wrong. Well, there's your open grave right there, hundreds of bodies in there, and one of the first quests to kind of go chat with a character and return an item to them. Of course, a lot of characters, as this is a video game, are asking for an item, so you'll go off and try to find something, bring it back, and then they'll give you something else. But again, we're going to see more combat here, and seeing a few more characters and how they attack us in both their kind of like human form and also their like souls-like form, where they spit out their soul and you have to fight that. A lot of cool weapons in this game, a lot of really cool gadgets, such as your drone that can distract enemies and kind of like stun lock a few of them, so you can face less of them at a time. And so if you're facing 4, you can kind of get the attention and distract one of them, so you're only facing 3. And there's great weapons for crowd control and for big bosses, and even some of the enemies are ranged, and so there's a big variety here. And in the I don't know, about 2.5, maybe 3 hours that I've played of it, I really enjoyed it. These are not my type of game, but when they invited me out, I thought, well, okay, I definitely want to give these more of a try, to really try to experience what I hadn't experienced before. To be completely honest with you, I hadn't played Oblivion until this year, and I hadn't gotten into a lot of other games until more recently, because I was just into other things like strategy games, city builders, and the occasional games such as this, but more along the lines of like the old school Assassin's Creeds, or maybe something like Ghost of Tsushima. But with this type of game, with it being a little bit more like a JRPG, it definitely has some of the things that you might know and love from Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and also, of course, some other maybe Kojima-like elements that make it a weird and pleasing experience when you try to figure out what's going on and then think that you're onto something in terms of how the environment works or what the story is or will be. So the developers have done a very good job of just constantly casting shadows over everything, including our main character at the very beginning. There's some things that go on that make you wonder who you actually are, and a lot of those are cliche, but I think that there's going to be a much bigger story that comes out later on, and I'm curious to see the big aha moment and how they hope to twist that towards the end. Now we're going from locations like trenches and small cities and little villages to large tunnels, and there's even a kind of a more open world area with a swamp that is connected to a village. This is open world-ish, where you're exploring the whole country in the back of this APC, and when we get access to that, and you may have when you see that earlier, you see that there's a big map, and you saw that there was areas to explore, and that's kind of where we're going to go and explore all these different regions. So it's a open world where you're transported via a APC but then you're kind of exploring villages and things like that. So, although it's not completely open world, I think I'm okay with that because I don't need to crawl around in the mountains and in the forests in order to go look for clues. I want to get to the fights that matter. Now, what's interesting here, too, is that a lot of the factions are barricading against these creatures, too, so they don't know what's going on, and there is a lot of human elements to this game, like a lot of actual living soldiers who are a part of one faction or another, and you could tell that they're absolutely fighting each other like what you would find in maybe Metro. Like they really don't like each other, and so they're causing a lot of pain to each other in many more ways than just shooting at each other. They're trying to capture each other and interrogate and try to torture each other like publicly and put that on display. And so they're trying to get to everybody's mind, and it's a very psychological game, and there's a lot of elements here that could be a little rough for some of you, but I think it's good to approach those things, especially when it comes to humanity. This game is not doing any sort of sugarcoating with that. It's going right in with the mass grave right there, and parents crying next to it. And it's going to be a fascinating thing to find out why all these people are fighting and what's going on with this rather poor kingdom that has put all of its money, or maybe it's not a kingdom, maybe it's a republic, whatever. Anyway, it's a country that has a lot of problems, and it's going to be a very cool thing for many people to find out the answers to this in a game that may not actually have like a satisfying ending, because it's going to have so many weird questioning puzzle elements of like, what the hell happened? Who is that? What is this who am I looking for? What is this person really after? That kind of thing. Now, I gotta say though, I was immediately pulled in at the start of the game. There's a cutscene where you're chatting with a character who is almost something like out of Resident Evil, one of the Resident Evil games, but also a Kojima game, and he's interrogating you. He's like he's like a KGB character, your interrogator, but he seems to be a much higher level guy. He's not just a generic, everyday dude just doing his job. He seems to be a much more calculated foe. And I love the dialogue between him and the cutscenes in this game, between you and him. And I almost didn't want to play and just wanted to see more of the actual cutscenes that have been shown in other trailers. And this game's been shown off for quite a while, and so now it'll be a part of Steam's Next Fest coming up very soon. So definitely make sure you check it out so you can try before you buy, and give it a shot for your own. And also, again, this is not my type of game, but whenever I'm invited or asked to try these things, this is good because I can say for myself whether or not it's approachable, and it really is. It was a game that I didn't end up dying in for a very long time, and when I started to die, then I was in a much higher level area, where then I needed to learn that pulse system, which is incredibly important. You can get away with having health kits and, of course, dodging all the time, but eventually you get into close quarters, and that becomes a lot more of a life-threatening situation with all the other creatures that can come at you from all different angles, and or above too, like shooting at you with like ranged attacks and things like that. So, but I gotta say the game is a little confusing as to who you are, and all the answers are going to come a little bit later. So I wasn't immediately attached to the main character, but I was attached to the story and trying to know what's going on in this location and who else will be an important character in it. And, right off at the start of the game, you meet a few different NPCs, and it's cool to be able to go back to some of those areas. It's not so linear where they want you to go from A to B to C to D, but you can always go back to a location to find an item in one of the other locations and bring it back. So sometimes puzzles and sometimes answers are not necessarily in the location that you're in, and they may lie with somebody else who's out there in the world that you need to go and discover. But overall, a very cool, stylish experience, and can't really show a lot of this one, I gotta say. The developer's asking for a lot of hush-hush secret things going on, a lot of things we were asked not to show, and very limited to about 15 minutes, to where I also had some of my own gameplay, but essentially it was the same thing. Nothing here from their B-roll is too different from what I had, and so I've got to say that, I want to tell you all more, and I want to share more. But on the other hand, it does seem like a good idea to keep a couple of secrets and not let everybody see things, at least until they try it themselves for the Steam Next Fest. And I think this might be the first time that the public gets their hands on the game, as it is coming out somewhat soon. And hopefully, based on all the recent people playing the game and events that they've been having and press meeting with them, and also you all being able to play as well. We'll get some valuable feedback for how the game can function, and we'll get a neat little launch game, a good game at launch, and then even better as time goes on. This year has been incredible. 2025 has been an outstanding year for games, and so if this isn't for you, that's totally fine. But I've got to say, there's been so much for everybody that it blows my mind. There's been so many wonderful games, and I think this will be absolutely one of them for especially console players. This just feels like it'll be so approachable and fun for everybody who likes to play these types of games on consoles. PC players, of course, will be able to enjoy this too, no problem. But it really is delightful to see all these games coming out of nowhere that look really vibrant, pretty, interesting, and that they approach topics that normally are kind of off limits, and they do so in a way where it's just like, no, man, we just want to rock and roll and tell our story, and hope you enjoy it. So that is certainly something that I think is present in this game, and I hope to see more locations in the future that aren't just like medieval castles and whatnot of, like, I don't know, Transylvania or something like that. I don't know, but it's cool. It's fun. I liked it. I want to play some more, but unfortunately, it's such a big year for other competitors like the Alters from 11-Bit Studios, and again, Death Stranding 2 from Kojima Productions. This one's going to try to shoehorn itself in a very difficult year where it's sharing some things with those games because it feels sci-fi, it feels Dark Souls, but it's a cool modern Dark Souls, and that, I think, with the Pulse system in addition to that, really makes this one stick out. So Hell Is Us coming soon, sometime very soon. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed. I don't want to jinx it or whatnot, but definitely check it out during the Steam Next Fest, and thanks to them for inviting me and everybody else out to give the game a try, and I hope to maybe play more games like this in the future. They don't interest me as much as everything else, but I've got to say it was able to pull me in and made me want to play more, and that's saying a lot for a game that usually would just be combat and that's it. But this one had a pretty neat story. So anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.